Hi guys, welcome to Python tutorial series. In the previous video, we started discussing class and instances in Python. We understood that class is a blueprint for creating instances. Class is a blueprint for creating instances. What is an instance? Instance is an actual object created from the class. Instance is the actual object created from the class. We understood how to create a class. We write class name colon pass. Pass indicates empty class. And how do we create instances from the class? We write instance name equal to, we write the class name bracket. We understood how do we create a point class. We write class point colon pass. And from the point class, we can create n number of points. Point 1 is equal to point 2 is equal to point, right? You can see here, I go to Python ideally shell and the Python file. I am going to create a class called as point colon pass. Pass indicates empty class. It is an empty class without any attributes and behaviors. From this class we can create instances. I say here point 1 is equal to point. Again I say here point 2 is equals to point. Like this we create instances, guys. In this video, I would like to discuss constructor in Python. What is a constructor? Constructor is a special method in the class. Constructor is a special function inside a class, guys. It runs automatically when you create new instance from a class. Constructor method is automatically called and executed when you create a new instance from the class, guys. The constructor method in Python is defined as underscore init underscore. We write def keyword underscore init underscore. This is a constructor. You must use self as the first parameter in the constructor, guys. First parameter should be self. You can pass more parameters to give values when creating the object, guys. I go to Python ideally shell and the Python file. This time our point class is not going to be empty. It is going to have a constructor. I see here def underscore init underscore bracket. Inside that I say self colon. What this constructor is going to do here, it is just going to print point created. Okay, you can see here we are creating two instances. I told you whenever you create an instance, constructor is called. Whenever you create an instance, constructor is called automatically. So we'll see two times point created, guys. If I save here and say run module, you see point created. Two times the constructor is executed automatically. Let me explain how exactly it is working behind the scene. I'm going to copy this code from here. I go to MS Paint and paste the code. Let's understand how exactly it is executed, guys. When the control comes to this line, point 1 is equal to point. What happens? This point implicitly calls a method called as underscore new underscore. Behind the scene, there is one more method which is running, which is called underscore new underscore, guys, which actually creates an empty object. It creates an empty object. What it does? It creates one empty object. Let's say this object address is hash a1. Okay, this memory location address is hash a1. What happens here when the point is called? When this point is called, it is going to pass this hash a1 newly created memory location address. It is going to pass, guys. Here hash a1 is sent. So this hash a1 is stored in the self. So what happens? Automatically the constructor is called here. In the self, okay, there will be a memory created for the self. In the self, it is going to store hash a1. Now the self points to the newly created object. And then what happens? Print function displays point created. Print function displays point created on the screen. So we'll see once point created displayed, guys. After executing the constructor, control comes back. When the control comes back, of course the self is removed from the memory. It is no more going to point to this object. Here this hash a1 is stored in the point variable. So what happens here? It creates one more variable called as point 1, point point 1. Inside that it stores the address hash A1, and once you store address in a variable, it starts pointing to that memory. So point 1 points to this empty object. So that is what happens behind the scene, guys. Now when point 2 equal to point is executed, what happens? Of course, the point is called. Implicitly it calls underscore underscore new underscore underscore. What that does, that creates a one more memory. It creates a memory. Let me move it up. It creates a memory, empty memory, and let's say its address is hash b1, and that hash b1 is sent over here. That hash b1, that is the address of newly created memory, is sent in this place. Again, the init function is called, the constructor is called. In the self, it stores the hash b1 address, and it starts pointing to this newly created memory. After that, print function displays one more time point created. Control C, Control V. So it displays point created. And the control comes back. When the control comes back, of course, the self is removed, and point 2 variable is created. So this is going to be a point 2 variable. In the point 2, hash b1 is stored. b1, the newly created memory address is assigned, and it starts pointing to this memory, guys. So we got 2 times point created displayed, ones, twos, and behind the scene 2 points are created, guys. So these are actually called as instances. These are actual objects in the memory, guys. So this is a class, these are instances, guys. I hope you guys have clearly understood how actually it works behind the scene. As I told, if you want, you can pass more parameters to give values while creating the object. You can see in this below example, while creating the objects, I am passing the name of the object, point 1 and point 2. So what I do here, I go back to Python IDLE shell and the Python file. This time I create one more parameter called as name. So instead of just displaying the point created, I remove this, and here I am going to use the name comma created. Now here to the name we have to pass the value. Here I am going to say point point 1, and here I pass point point 2. This time what happens, instead of displaying point created, it displays point 1 created, point 2 created. If I save this and say run module, you see now it is displaying point 1 created, point 2 created. Let me explain how exactly it is working behind the scene. Let me copy this code, go to MS Paint, and I paste the code over here. Let's understand how exactly it is working. Now point 1 equal to point is executed, guys. Okay, so what happens here, the point implicitly calls the underscore underscore new underscore underscore method. What it does, it creates one empty object as usual. It creates a empty object, and its address assume hash a1. This hash a1 is sent over here. So this hash a1 is sent as the first argument. Understanding? And now the constructor is called behind the scene. So when it creates a new object or new instance, immediately it calls the constructor. So here 2 memory locations will be created, one for self, one for name. In the self, hash a1 is stored, hash a1, right? So hash a1 is stored in the self, and point 1 is stored in the name variable. Understanding? And self starts pointing to this memory. After that, what happens? The print is executed. What print displays? Name, value of name. What is the value of name? Point 1. Point 1 created. So print displays point 1 created. point 1 created. This is the output we get, guys. Understanding? And then the control comes back. When the control comes back, of course, these memories are removed. Okay, the memory locations are removed. And what happens here? It creates a memory for point 1. It creates a memory for point 1, point 1. In that, it stores the address hash a1, newly created memory location address hash a1, and it starts pointing to this memory. Next, what happens? Of course, point 2 equal to point is called. Of course, point behind the scene calls __new method. What it does, it creates a new memory. Let's say its address is #b1. What happens here? Along with point2 value, it passes the address of the newly created memory, that is #b1. So 2 values are passed here. It immediately calls the constructor __init __. Again it creates 2 memory locations, one for self, one for the name. In the self it stores b1. And in the name it stores point2. And the self starts pointing to this newly created memory. After that, print is executed. What is the value of name? Is point2. Point2 created is displayed, guys. So on the screen you will see POINT point2 created, and then the control comes back. Here these 2 memory locations are removed from the memory, guys. Understanding? It creates one more memory, that is point2. In the point2 it stores the address of newly created memory, that is #b1. And point2 starts pointing to this memory, and then the program execution ends, guys. So that is how the behind the scene the code is executed, guys. So self always indicates the current object. Self indicates the current object with which we are working, guys. Understanding? So that is about the constructor, guys. So immediately the constructor is called. If I go back to Python IDLE shell and the Python file, let's say I create a class called as circle. Inside this I define __init __. The first parameter should be self, colon, and here I say print. In single quotations I say circle circle created, bracket close. Now we created a class with a constructor. If I say here circle1, circle1 is equal to circle, bracket. If I save this and run, you will see circle created displayed. So automatically the constructor is called. If I say once again circle circle2 is equal to circle circle and save, one more time the constructor is called from the circle class. If I save and say run module, you see 2 times circle created is displayed. So whenever I create a new instance, whenever I create a new object, immediately this constructor is called. I save and say run module, you see circle created is again called. If you want, of course you can pass more parameters. So if I say here comma name, instead of just saying circle created, this time I pass the name of the instance. So I display here name comma created. So while calling the circle, I simply say here circle circle1, and here I say circle circle2, and here I say circle circle3, and this time if I save and say run module, you see the output displayed circle1 created, circle2 created, circle3 created. So circle1 is stored in the name, circle1 created displayed, circle2 is stored in the name, circle2 is created displayed, circle3 is stored in the name, circle3 is created. We don't pass the value for the self, guys. We don't pass the value for the self. Behind the scene, the Python sends the value to the self. That will be the address of the newly created object. The address of newly created object, guys. What is the use of constructor in Python? The use of constructor is, it is used to set initial values for object attributes, guys. Constructors are used to set initial values to objects attributes. We haven't discussed yet about attributes and behaviors. We discuss about attributes and behaviors in the upcoming classes. During that time, definitely we'll discuss how we can add attributes to objects and how we can take help of these parameters to set values to the attributes, guys. I hope you guys have clearly understood what is a constructor in Python. In the upcoming video tutorials, we'll discuss more about Python in depth, step by step, guys. I suggest you people to try this yourself, experiment. If you have any doubts, feel free to put them in the comment section. I'll be happy to clear, guys. For more benefits and be up to date, do not forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Keep learning, keep coding, keep sharing. Thank you, guys. Thank you very much. See you in the next tutorial.